Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for being with us. We have so many loyal subscribers, both on the audio platforms as well as the video platforms. So we really thank you for subscribing and sharing the link and links with your circles of influence. We're seeing more and more attention every week. And I know a big part of that is the awesome guests that we have each and every week. And as you know, I try to vary up the guests constantly, so we're not in the same vein or same industry segment all the time. I like to keep it varied and different. And recently we've had some really interesting guests that have gone kind of completely off the main course. So I'm hoping that's been enjoyable to our listeners. And this week we also have a really awesome guest, and I can't wait to get into the meat of the conversation. But if you haven't listened to us before or haven't listened to all of our episodes, you want to check out the past episodes, you can go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com for a full list of all of our guests, all of our episodes. You can pick and choose which ones you want to listen to. You can also, there's a link there to YouTube, there's a link there to Rumble, and there's also a pop-up window that comes up if you want to be a guest on the I Got a Guy podcast. If you have a business and you'd like for it to be shared on our podcast, I'd love to have a conversation with you and figure out how we best get you into the schedule and get you on our podcast. So I'm happy to have that avenue open to our listeners. So do that at igotaguypodcast.com. As you know, this podcast was really born out of reading a book called The Go-Giver. As small business owners, so many of my guests are small business owners or employees for smaller businesses or are salespeople for businesses that serve small businesses. So we all have a similar interest, and we all understand how important networking is. A common misnomer is that networking is all about getting referrals, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. The reality is networking is all about giving referrals. And the more you give, the more you gain in return. So that book, and a book called The Go-Giver, really highlights that. So if you have not read that book, I encourage you to download it on Audible, pick it up off of Amazon, download it to your Kindle, or however you read books. There's all kinds of ways. It's a great book, and I think you'll find some value in it. That book does highlight 5 laws of stratospheric success. And, most weeks I highlight one of those laws in the episode and how it directly relates to our guest for the week. This week, I want to touch on the law of influence. And it's defined by your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest first. Think about that. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest first. And I think when you get a chance to really absorb the guest that we have this week, you're going to see how his business and how he approaches his business is really very focused on that law. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Please help me welcome Matt Hammer from iSolved. Matt, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. And also, I really appreciate the affiliation with that particular law that you were referring to in the Go-Giver book. That's a really nice compliment, and definitely something I like to prioritize in terms of connecting and facilitating great introductions for the individuals in my network.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Matt, you and I have known each other for several years, and you have an energy about you that is really admired, and I love your tenacity and your focus and your drive. So, and I know you're relatively new with iSolved, but you've been in the space for a while, and so I just can't wait to get into the details of our conversation here. So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then tell us how you got into iSolved and then your role here at iSolved.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the payroll HR technology space for going on about 8 years. Obviously, I work at iSolved now, and I've worked with some other HR providers and payroll providers in the past. and really my path is kind of interesting. Like when I think back to how did I get involved into the HR and payroll space? Well, my original background in terms of, I would consider my first like real grown-up job was in the telecommunications space and in the retail space. So I worked for Best Buy for many years, and I also worked for AT&T and retail. And there I was obviously helping out individuals, but a lot of the individuals I was helping out with was more direct to consumer. And
Hmm.
my passion and my why is really just to help people solve their problems at its most basic and simple form. And when you're in your early 20s, I knew that I loved helping people. I just didn't know what medium that was necessarily gonna come through or come out in. And so I naturally kind of gravitated towards sales because I love interacting with individuals. Like I mentioned, I love solving problems. And just my success through my career and some of the achievements I've been able to hit, and some of the goals I was able to accomplish, it kind of always just presented and you know um, opened up the doors for new opportunities. And I've had a lot of success not only as an individual contributor helping individuals reach their goals, whether it be direct to consumer or businesses, but I've also had the pleasure of leading multiple sales teams across many different industries. And those opportunities that I've been able to accomplish and achieve has just kind of led me to that next open door. And that next open door and that next best opportunity for me was working alongside business owners with iSolved. And my passion is kind of evolved from not just helping people, but really helping business owners solve the challenges of obviously owning a business and navigating through
Hmm.
many different challenges and hurdles that and potholes that kind of come along the way. And we can kind of dig a little bit deeper into some of the things that I'm seeing and
Yeah.
my experiences with best practices and insights and what have you into the conversation. But that's ultimately what kind of brought me over to iSolved. It's an organization that really aligns very well with my personal values in terms of how they treat me as an employee. And I like to share, those success stories with business owners to help them, create an environment and a culture to really thrive and help their business not only accomplish their goals, but a business is able to accomplish their goals a lot easier when they have very engaged and happy employees. And the business is able to invest into their futures individually as well.
Yeah, great. So I solved. I know the buzzword in the industry is called HCM, or human capital management. Essentially, it's
Mhm.
a payroll company on steroids, doing a lot more than just processing your payroll checks, right?
Yeah, I would say the payroll is kind of the center of the web. It is,
Hmm.
the transactional side
Sure.
of what we do, and there's a lot of really great organizations that help out their, clients with payroll. But I would say it's really kind of evolved into more of a technology need versus just a kind of a transactional. I need to pay my employees. There's a lot of different things and functions that are, you know, affecting the employee experience that ultimately are attached to payroll. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can help out business owners achieve those goals through whether it be streamlining different processes through technology or giving them different tools and resources that they otherwise wouldn't normally have access to, especially the small and medium sized businesses.
Right. And yeah, you're exactly right. And when you think about some of the challenges that smaller businesses have, is essentially competing with the bigger corporations and retaining their employees. So they have to be able. You have to pay your employees, obviously, and you want to pay them
Mhm.
as well as you can. But there's more to it than just the payroll check, which is what you're seeing, right? It's the benefits, it's the access to whether it be health benefits or
Mhm.
other types of benefits, fringe benefits like tuition assistance or um, daycare, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it, it's interesting that you bring up like the benefit side because that definitely goes hand in hand, with the payroll piece in and of itself. But again, the thing that's interesting about our industry is that it's a commodity that everyone could technically do themselves. I mean, if you're a business owner, I mean, you have employees, all the math and all the equations are there for you to kind of handle on your own if you so choose. But one thing that I'm finding is that there's really three main challenges that really every business owner is going to have to navigate through or face with. And many businesses aren't necessarily challenged with all three, some are. But I haven't quite found a business that could say, yes, like I definitely have a solution and I feel 100% confident in tackling all three of these challenges in my current state. And those three challenges break down into these three categories. You kind of mentioned human capital management, and that's just, building a great culture for your employees. And that could range everything from finding employees, recruiting employees, to onboarding those employees, to developing and training those employees, or maybe creating a workplace with benefits, such you mentioned, or just creating a culture to retain those employees. All of those things, that kind of employee life cycle, really falls into the first challenge of how do I recruit, attract, retain, and develop a really great workplace culture to be an employer of choice. That's by far the number one challenge that I'm seeing business owners, big and small, whether it's one employee adding their just individual sole proprietor S corp adding their first employee, or it's someone that has thousands of employees. It's how do we really create a great workplace culture to attract awesome people to work here and develop them and obviously incentivize them to stay. The second challenge that I'm seeing is having systems and technology that you can rely upon to ensure that you're creating the best workflows for your internal staff, both in the employee side and the administration side. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic, Mike, when you look at it, because the smaller businesses, what I'm finding is they're doing a lot of things by paper and they're pushing manual processes through, such as, something simple as like keeping track of time, or maybe you're onboarding an employee and you're having to fill out a bunch of paperwork to just get started off. So the challenge of smaller businesses is kind of leaving the manual processes and getting a technology system that is going to, kind of tie some of these things together and really cut down on time and also improve accuracy. The inverse of that, the challenge that a lot of larger businesses, or maybe just, I wouldn't say larger, just I would say more well-established businesses, businesses that have been around for quite some time, they probably have some type of technology that they're leaning on right now. But the problem is that I'm seeing is as businesses grow and as needs, come up, or hurdles or challenges come up, a lot of business owners are kind of faced with, well, I have this need and I have this new problem. Just as the example, let's say like, hey, I need to do something specific with my timekeeping. Well, a lot of business owners and HR leaders and just business leaders are looking at the specific problem saying, okay, I need to use technology to solve that. But the challenges, or the opportunity rather, is instead of just looking at that one minute problem and adding another piece of technology to their already, existing technology stack, they're missing the opportunity to really take a step back and tie a lot of these technology processes together. Because where they're currently at right now, if they just continue to add and stack different pieces of technology like bricks, they end up with this like Frankenstein system of all these different pieces of technology that might do a great job individually of those tasks, but they're not working together. They're not coordinated. They're not connected together. They're not streamlining processes and adding efficiencies. And a lot of times it's actually, adding inefficiencies because you're having to enter the same data points into multiple different systems. Whereas when I'm working with a larger business, or maybe a more well-established business, that's more of the conversation, and the challenge I'm finding is, hey, everything you're doing right now is not wrong. It's probably going really well, but just because what you're doing isn't broken, it doesn't mean that there's not a better way to do it. And let's take a step back. Let's take a look at the bigger picture and see how we can give you a technology platform that really ties all your existing processes together seamlessly to really cut back on time, cut back on errors, and put more hours in their day to invest into their employees or grow their business. And the last challenge, Mike, is just the inevitable, never-ending hamster wheel of trying to stay up to date with federal and state compliance law. I mean, that's something that
Oh,
is
sure.
just the second you feel like you're on top of it, the federal government and the state government's going to come out with 10 or 15 more laws to keep you busy. So it's something that you're just never going to get out ahead of. But having a partner that can keep you out ahead as best as possible to make sure that you're covering your blind spots and not exposing yourself to unneeded risk. That's having a good HCM partner or an HR partner to provide you with that content and kind of course correct you, put up the bumpers a little bit. That's really where a business like iSolved and myself, where I could add value to an organization.
Okay. Well, that's a great overview, and spawned several questions in my head here. I want to make sure we get to them.
Yeah.
We'll get to them now, and then after that, we'll take a break and we'll get to more of these questions. But it sounds like what you're saying is that you really provide essentially a roadmap for your customers. That they may start out smaller, where they may need a couple pieces, but by having all the options there, they can grow with you as they need to add other pieces.
Yeah, I would say that that's a very great way to explain it. And for me, Mike, is I don't try to sell anyone anything. I like to have. I mean, I'm a sales rep by definition, a consultant, sales consultant, if you will. But I'm not out here trying to convince someone to do something that isn't in alignment with their goals. Really, my passion is going back to my why. You mentioned a great book, The Go Giver. There's another amazing book called Start with Why by Simon Sinek. I'm sure that you've read it. I'm sure that there's a lot of individuals that have also read it that listen to your program. But also, if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it, because really, when you start with your why and you try to you drill in exactly why you do what you do, it makes everything else and all the ancillary pieces of what you're doing a lot more genuine. And so for me, like by me trying to solve problems, my first, I guess process is trying to understand what the goals, like what the current state of the business is, and then what their goals are. And once I
Mm-hmm.
understand what their goals are, I can roll out a roadmap for, hey, here's a few things that we really need to get accomplished right away that are going to add some additional value to what you're doing and help you achieve those goals sooner. But here's just some information and some education on how our partnership can continue to develop and grow. Maybe this is something that you don't need right now, but you mentioned that your goal was to, increase your revenue by 85, 90% in the next 24 months. Here's a few modules, or here's a few things you should be thinking about 8 to 12 months down the road as that goal becomes a little bit, closer on the horizon. So everything that I do is very consultative and very modular. So to your point, I'm really just trying to give people the education they need to empower them to make a decision that makes the most sense for their business, that's going to put them in a great position to accomplish their goals.
Right. And be the right decision now as well as in the near future, so they can grow into
Definitely.
those uh, uh, those ancillary solutions as the business evolves. And
Yeah,
it's interesting.
it's very seldomly can you do everything all at once, right? You have to kind of break it out
Of course,
into different sections, and almost like create a roadmap for how you
yeah,
want to establish everything for sure.
yeah. Well, talking to your why, I'm very familiar with that book you mentioned as well, and that's how I run my business, Precise Fleet Tracking. I also don't believe that I sell my customers anything. I'm there to help them solve a challenge, and
Hmm.
if GPS tracking is a solution that will help them, I kind of lay out all the benefits and all the tools that we have, and if it's something that will help them get to their goals, then we usually move forward and build that solution. And if it isn't a solution that's going to help them today, that's okay. You know what? We provide the information, we plant the seed, and when they're ready, they know that I'm here to help them with that. And it's not about cramming a square peg in a round hole, because that's just not a good way to build a business. And so I can totally relate to that approach. So we're going to take a break here in a minute, and then I'm going to come back. We want to talk about the type of companies that you work with and some of the successes that you've had, so that our listeners can get an idea whether or not their business might be one that would benefit from meeting with you. Okay, but before we go to the break, why don't you share your contact information? What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you, whether it be email, phone calls, what have you? What's the best way for them
Yeah,
to?
absolutely. Well, I appreciate that opportunity. So my name is Matt Hammer with just one T. So MAT, and my last name is Hammer, HAMMER. Best way to reach me is by cell phone. So you can call, you can text me. My phone number is 630-414-6820. Again, that's 630-414-6820. Connect with me on LinkedIn just by searching my name, Matt Hammer with one T. And you can put iSolved in there if there's many of us, many other Matt Hammers out there. And then my email is mhammer@isolvedhcm.com. That's isolvedhcm.com. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next segment.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to put that information in our show notes. It'll be on the screen as well for our viewers on YouTube and Rumble. But when you do reach out to Matt, make sure you tell me you heard about him here on I Got a Guy podcast. So we'll take a quick break, come back, and we'll continue talking here with Matt and learn all about the types of companies that he's serving today. So we'll be right back. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Specifically, Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions is known for three key principles. First, we are very knowledgeable in the field of GPS tracking and working diligently to learn more every day. Second, we are accessible. We do not hide behind a toll-free number, and we do not have any overseas call centers. We know our clients personally, and we're extremely committed to serving all of our clients as we'd want to be served. And third, we are responsive. We deliver our GPS units promptly and work diligently to install as quickly as possible. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions is consistently striving to exceed our clients' expectations. You can learn more about Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. We make GPS tracking simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. I am Michael Drelichars, host of I Got a Guy podcast. I am thrilled to have Matt Hammer with us this week. Matt Hammer, he is a sales consultant with iSolved, Human Capital Management, talking about payroll and benefits and all types of services that help corporations be more efficient and serve their employees. Matt, thank you for being with us this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you for just everything that you do, Mike. I love the program, love the podcast, and I think it's amazing how you give your network a platform to share what they do. And I know that that's helping a lot of your listeners and your viewers make more guided and educated decisions on, who might be a good power partner for them and, in order for them to achieve their goals. So really respect and love what you do and very thankful to be a part of the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. It is a passion of mine, and I really want to help small businesses grow. And all my guests are either customers or referral partners that I've worked with, and love to help everybody grow. That's the bedrock of this country, small businesses. So
that it is.
Yeah. So we were talking before the break about iSolved and human capital management and the different pillars that you solve. Let's talk a little bit now about the type of customers that you serve, the companies that you serve, and maybe some successes that you've had where you've been able to really showcase your strengths and the strengths of iSolved for your customers.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so interesting again that you asked that particular question because whenever I'm sitting down and I'm networking, whether it be with someone that I just met, and it's maybe a potential new power partner, or it's even existing long lasting relationships like we've known each other for many years. One of the main questions that I get is, hey, like what makes a good referral for you? And I always used to joke, like, hey, honestly, any business that has payroll or employees, like that's a good fit for me. Or, I've even tried to define it from a business characteristic standpoint, where if they've got this many employees or that many employees, that might be a good fit. But one thing I've really found out, Mike, the best way or the best kind of way for me to describe what is a great referral is not so much in the characteristics of the business, although anyone with employees, is a great fit to meet with, whether it be myself and iSolved or really any HCM or payroll provider. And I would strongly encourage anyone that is currently using someone to keep up and keep in contact with their existing provider. Or if you're interested in reevaluating that partnership, I would strongly suggest meeting with either, someone like myself or myself individually if you feel so inclined. But I would say that the best way to describe who I can help best is it really kind of falls in the mindset of the business owner or the HR leader and like what goals that they're looking to accomplish at the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to the challenges that I mentioned before, which are just finding, hiring, onboarding, retaining, and developing great people to create an awesome culture, creating more efficient systems and technology that works together to complement each other, to create more efficient workflows, to save time and improve accuracy within a business. Or if you're a business that is just in a constant hamster wheel of trying to stay up to date with compliances, things like manufacturing or, a lot of blue collar, a lot of, restaurant, hospitality type industries where there's always new compliances to stay, on top of. So I would say if you're looking to build a really great workplace culture with very engaged employees and attract and retain top talent, if you're someone that is looking to create more efficient processes and systems using technology to, create efficiencies, to give you more time in your day to either invest back into your employees or invest into growing the business, really streamlining a lot of operational tasks. And then the last piece is, if you're in an industry that is, constantly under the microscope of staying compliant, those are all really great challenges that myself and iSolved are in a great position to equip, a solution together that's personalized and is able to help. But we're, a lot of times in the payroll and HR world, we get kind of put into this bucket of, well, how many employees is a good fit? Truthfully, one employee all the way to thousands of employees are a great fit. And one thing I really respect and love about iSolved is that we actually use at iSolved are the exact same platform and service that we provide to our clients, which I think it just speaks volumes of how reliable our platform is and how reliable our technology is. I mean, we drink our own Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Sure.
But we're one of a few payroll and HR companies that actually use their own tech platform, which I think definitely speaks volumes of the quality of the service too.
That's surprising that you're one of the few HR or payroll companies that uses your own platform.
Yeah, I haven't taken a full tally or a poll of which ones do, which ones don't. But all I can say is I do know that iSolve does, and that was something that stood out to me.
Yeah,
that was pretty awesome.
That's great. And I've used iSolve in the past as well in a different business that I owned, and you guys do a great job with helping. I know specifically on the compliance side of it. It's one of those, at least for me, it's one of the aspects that I never find enough time in the day to study. Our business, there's so many moving parts to any business. It doesn't matter if you're in a service business, you're in a hospitality business, you're in a manufacturing business. It doesn't really matter. Every business, there are so many moving parts, and you almost you can't be a jack of all trades, because then you're a master of none, and now your business suffers. And so there are things that you have to outsource. And sadly, I think there's a number of businesses that rather than outsource, they just ignore, and then they get themselves in trouble. And the worst thing to do is get yourself in trouble at the wrong time.
No, you're 100% right, Mike. And it's the toughest competitor in any situation. This goes for all consultants across the board. And this is you've experienced this in your business, I'm sure. But the number one competitor of any new solution is the status quo, is the, hey, what I'm doing right now, it's not broken, it's not fixed, or if it's not broken, don't fix it type of a mentality. And it's that is a challenge, and it's tough to steer people. And I'm definitely not a fear-based salesperson. I'm never someone that's going to come in there and say, well, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. I really just like to share success stories and share best practices from other business owners that have similar characteristics to the individual that I'm sitting in front of. Whether it be via industry or employee size or maybe life cycle of business or stage of business, whatever that may be. And I like to, give them some different perspective so that way they can make a more educated decision on, how they want to move forward. But no, I agree. I definitely think that, especially in the world of compliance, I mean, you could literally hire a full-time team that all they do is just try to stay up to date with compliance, and they're never going to be fully up to date. Just because it's when you span across all 50 states and the different laws that are coming out, it's very tough to stay on top of. So having a partner that can kind of see these things coming and see the legislation pass and know that this bill is going to go into effect 6 months in the future, well, part of our consultation is when we see that, we will reach out to our business owners and our clients and say, hey, like this new bill just passed. It's not into effect right now, but it's going to be in effect in 6 months. Let's get out ahead of this and let's proactively plan around how we're going to change or update the handbook, or how we're going to change or update this job description, or how we're going to roll this out to make sure that all the employees are educated on it. Having a proactive partner that's going to be able to do that is really going to eliminate a lot of risk from a business versus, being on your heels and having a new law roll out. Unfortunately, the IRS or the DOL doesn't subscribe everyone to an email list that just says, hey, here's the new laws that have come out each month. Having a strategic partner really is going to benefit you a ton. That's for sure.
Right. So there's two things that came to mind there. I mean, one is, there are some people that, take the status quo and just kind of ignore those changes
Mhm.
and hope it doesn't come back to bite them, which is a flawed approach, obviously. But hiring a staff of HR professionals to stay on top of it can be very, very expensive to the average organization. Unless you're talking about, a Fortune 100 type company, I think it's very difficult to be able to afford that.
Especially for a smaller business. Sherm says that for every 100 employees, you should have about 1.5 HR professionals like dedicated to HR at your organization. And one thing I see a lot, again, like kind of two end of the spectrum. You've got a smaller business with maybe like 5 to 10 employees where the real HR need comes in two different, or really kind of two different phases for a small business. It's like, A, right when you're starting, because you want to make
Right.
sure that you got a solid foundation for it. Like, you don't want to build your house and then realize that it's on a middle, on top of a sand dune, and it's just unstable. So, A, like getting, counsel and really making sure you got the right policies and procedures to A, like ensure that your compliance is all good, but B, you're creating an infrastructure and you're creating a foundation that's going to help you achieve your goals faster. But then who do most small business owners hire as their first couple employees? It's usually like friends, family, inside this like social circle where there's a lot of these unwritten laws of like, no one is really going to, not, I wouldn't say no one, but I would say it very seldomly is there going to be a huge HR issue when there's like really close contact to the people that you're hiring, whether it be like a personal relationship or, a family member. Where I see the next phase of really needing help and getting some advice when it comes to HR is when you're starting to hire outside of your social circle.
Sure.
Now you're going
Totally.
into the big pond of evaluating resumes and picking the right person, picking the wrong person, where picking the right person is going to have such a dramatic increase to the output of your business and being able to hit your goals. But picking the wrong person or picking someone that isn't a good fit or picking someone that just could be um, you know, whether it be a culture killer or someone that is not going to be a good mesh with the business, that could be a detrimental setback. And so just having a really sound strategy, not only on the proactive side to make sure that we're, finding the right people and evaluating the right resumes and putting the best practices in place, but on the other side of things where we want to make sure we're covering our blind spots and setting right expectations to where if we do need to separate from an employee, we're not leaving the business susceptible to any potential lawsuits or anything like that as well. So
Yeah.
that's where kind of like I see a lot of it on the front end where there's no HR department, and to hire an HR person, I mean, you're talking depending on where you live, 80, $100,000 salary plus benefits. And then on the inverse side of that, where you're talking with a larger business, I work with a lot of businesses that have 300, 400 employees and only have a couple of HR people on staff, and they're doing good. It's not that they're doing bad. Again, I would never come in and say someone is not working efficiently because obviously they have a solution for something, but they're not being as efficient with their time as possible because only two people trying to manage, 400 people on the HR side, they could really use a strategic partner to offload a lot of those mundane tasks, staying up to date with compliances. So those HR individuals that are at the organization can focus more on the proactive culture building tasks that are going to address the challenges such as
Right.
finding, hiring, and retaining, really great people. So, a business like iSolved, we can offer all of those benefits of having an HR department, but at the, low cost of a minimum wage part-time employee effectively in terms
Right.
of the pricing of what that would look like. So drastic differences in terms of cost, but significant gains when it comes to the value of what it could really do to help a business achieve their goals.
Yeah. When I had a retail business a few years back, and was always in a mode of hiring. Retail businesses, I think it's just one of those inevitable things that
Yeah.
is a revolving door. And I happen to be in the cellular business, so there's a training aspect, the onboarding and the training of the products, which took some time to go. So you almost always had to have somebody queued up ready to hire as soon as there was a vacancy. It was very, very challenging. I know iSolve does a really nice job of um, helping a business owner identify the right employees. And if we can talk about that for a little bit, there's
Yeah.
profiling tools, and there's tests, there's ways to evaluate a candidate to make sure that they fit the culture of the business. They're not necessarily a bad person. It's just not everyone is the right fit for every business from a culture standpoint. Can you talk to that a little bit?
You're Yeah, you're 100% right. And we're in this really weird dynamic right now where there are significantly more people looking for jobs. I'm sorry, there's significantly more people um, there's significant more jobs available than people looking for jobs. So that puts us in a weird dynamic of not only do you have to do that to make sure you find the right person for your organization and your right fit, but when you get someone that's in an interview, you kind of have to assume that they're probably talking to 4 or 5 other companies. And you have to make sure that you're in a position to not only find the right person and find that right candidate profile, but also you need to be in a position to where we can actually attract them and get them moving forward with your organization. So I'm going to break your question down in a couple different responses. So whenever you look at any HR process, there's really 2 different ways you need to look at it. The first way is the strategic way, which is more so the idea, the plan, the strategy of how we want to go to market and how we want to overcome this challenge or achieve this goal. In your example, the strategy for finding a great person comes down to kind of like 2 components. One, are we fishing with the right bait? Well, first off, do we know what type of fish we want to catch? is the first question.
Sure.
The second question is, are we fishing with the right bait? Meaning, do we have the right salary in alignment for this? Do we have the right benefit lineup for this? Do we need more benefits for this position? Do we need less benefits for this position? Can we kind of get away with maybe not having that full suite of benefits? Are we fishing with the right bait to actually get someone to attract towards your job listing and take interest in it? And then the last one is, are we fishing in the right pond? Like, if we're looking for this fish and we know that we want to attract it in this way, are we fishing in the right area of the lake to give us the best opportunity to catch that fish? And so what I see a lot of business owners doing is they are just getting like a blanket job description and they're kind of getting their salary benchmarking, their benefits from either their existing employees, or maybe they're just kind of like coming up with it, on what might make sense to them, which isn't necessarily wrong, but it's not necessarily saying like what the market is demanding for it. And they're finding a hard time like just getting bites on the hook. But then because they're getting so few bites on the hook, now then when they get a bite, it's hard for them to differentiate from all the other job offers that candidate probably already has. So that's the strategic side to your question, is really kind of looking at it that way. Then there's the tactical side, which is like every strategy is perfect, but if you don't have the right tools to actually implement the strategy, well, then the strategy is only as good as the tools you have to implement it. Yeah, like we could go fishing and have all this great, plan, but if my fishing pole is a stick with a shoelace tied on the end of it and a hook tied on the end of that shoelace, like, I don't know, like, is it really going to give me the best chance at catching that fish? So the analogy I use with business owners a lot of the times is kind of broken down into 4 things. It's, do we know what type of fish we're looking to catch? What bait are we using to catch that fish? Are we fishing in the right pond? And do I have the right technology to where when I catch that fish or when I get that fish on the line, do we have the right technology to take them through the process quickly and onboard them and differentiate ourselves from a lot of our competitors and give that employee a great experience? Because the employee is more likely to choose an organization that's giving them the best feeling and the best experience nowadays, not necessarily what looks great on paper in terms of benefits.
Right. And one other component that I think factors in there is if you don't have those tools in place, you as the employer, you may make an offer to the wrong candidate and actually hurt your business by bringing them the wrong candidate that doesn't fit your culture, doesn't fit the needs of the business, and 3 months down the road you're in worse position than you were before. So I can see, I can see how those tools are really important to make sure that business owner is efficiently growing their staff in the best possible way.
You're 100% right. And so what iSolved does and what I do and how we really make a huge difference and impact for businesses that I have the opportunity and the pleasure of working alongside, we are able to help on the strategic planning side of, the kind of scenario I just gave you. But then also we have this unbelievable award-winning, best-in-class technology platform that is fully scalable. It's fully modular. But the biggest differentiator that iSolved has is not just the strategic planning. It's not just the tactical side, but we, from a partnership standpoint, blend those two together. So the strategy that we're sharing with you, we show you how to implement it on the tactical side and actually leverage it in the technology. Where in my experience and the feedback I'm getting from a lot of business owners that are using, other providers, is that they might get this great advice on the front end, but then they don't necessarily know how to implement it into the technology. And so now they have this technology platform, but they don't really, it's not that they don't know how to use it. It's just that they never set it up the right way. So that way they are able to use it.
Sure.
And one thing that iSolve does in the implementation side is we take a very vested interest with white glove, red carpet treatment on our implementation side. And we really work directly with the business owner, the HR leader, to understand their vision, understand the workflows that they want to create. And then we build the system entirely around that. And once we have the system established, we train that business owner, the HR leader, on how to actually use the technology to accomplish those tasks. So that way they can actually hit their goals. And we do all of this before they actually run their first payroll with iSolve, which is another thing that's really important to me. And the reason why I chose iSolved is the customer service, both on the implementation side and the ongoing customer support, was something that when I actually saw the model and I was getting some feedback from our clients and, reading testimonials and reaching out to clients proactively before I actually accepted the job at iSolved, I was really blown away with the feedback that our clients were providing in terms of the experience and just how well supported they felt.
Yeah, well, that's tremendous. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago about, a lot of small businesses start out with a couple employees that are friends of the family kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
Certainly the expectations might be a little bit different at that level than when you're going out to the general population, to somebody, to a pool of people you've never met before. Is it do you recommend businesses just start out with iSolved? So if you're just opening up your business right now, today, and you haven't hired your first employee, whether it's going to be a family member or it's going to be somebody off the street you never met before, do you recommend that the first thing you do is you set up the iSolved system and then kind of go from square one through that process and never have to implement it in an existing environment?
Yeah, I think to answer your question, from iSolve specifically standpoint, I don't know if I can blanket that answer, but what I would recommend is sitting down and having a strategic conversation, a direct consult with someone like myself to understand what your goals are. We can go through with what solution is going to be best for that particular business, because a lot of businesses have very similar goals, but the way to get to those goals, depending on what their current state is and what the goal is going to maybe be a little bit different. But I will say that having a technology platform that is able to be very expansive when it comes to adding on different things as you go is definitely something that should be if you take the time to evaluate that on the front end of opening your business. And it's hard to imagine it, right? Because if you're a business owner, you don't know what you don't know yet, and you don't know what right looks like a lot of times. But I would say that I'll just give you a quick example. I was talking to a business owner the other day. He has one employee. I'm sorry, he doesn't have any employees. He's about to hire about 3 to 4 employees right off the bat. And he's at the point where he's not going to hire those employees for about 8 months. He's going to be doing things on his own for the next 8 months. And he was very thankful that I took the time to sit down and have this conversation with him and really give him this idea of what his business is going to look like, not with 3 to 4 employees, but what it's really going to look like with 10, 15, 20 employees, because that was his goal. He wants to grow it to about 30, 10 to 20 to 30 employees in the next 24 months. So we were living in that world. And in order for that to be true, you really have to have the right foundation on the front end to get set up. And so he wasn't in the position to set that up right now, but he's very thankful that we had that conversation, because in 8 months, he will be in the position to get that set up. And we're going to make sure that we pour the right foundation for him to build that business up from a technology infrastructure in a very sound way, that he's not going to have to make a lot of changes in the future outside of just what modules he would need. But on the other hand, I was just working with a business owner that is going to have 7 employees from the get-go, and he's going to be getting some assistance with HR services, timekeeping, expense management, performance management, onboarding, and also applicant tracking. And so he's not necessarily going to be using everything all at once, but there is a immediate need for a lot of these things within the first 3 months of his business. So having that sound foundation from the get-go is really important. And then on the inverse of that, kind of like what we mentioned, I'm working with a 500 employee business right now that is using a lot of different technology. And they were kind of one of those victims I mentioned earlier in the podcast, where as they had technology needs that came up, they just kind of added, things as they needed, kind of like stacking bricks. And what they found was their existing provider didn't offer this piece of technology. So now they had to go to a different vendor to get that. And then you got to go to a different vendor to get this. So having something that's going to be able to connect all your different processes in the future together, even though it's not something you need right now, I think is something that's important and is worth the time of a business owner to do that immediately when you're opening a business, not even though it's not something you're necessarily going to utilize right away. Hopefully that
Right.
was able to answer your question.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and I'm sure that all those tools that you have are all integrated together. So when
Yeah. And
you enter the employee's information up front, um, and then down the road you may add a couple of these modules. It all kind of flows together, so you're not re-entering, which removes some of the errors in keying errors and data discrepancies, etc. And certainly saves a lot of time from the business owner or the HR person's day, not replicating that information.
Yeah, I think one thing that differentiates iSolved is we do have the vast majority of modules or technology that you would need. It's all iSolved owned, operated, technology that's integrated together. Again, we use our own platform. But a lot of times I come across businesses that use very industry specific pieces of technology. Like, for example, there might be a manufacturing company or a construction company that uses a very industry specific timekeeping tool that isn't a part of iSolve. Because of our unbelievable tech team and developers, we do have in most cases, not necessarily every case, but in the vast majority of cases, we do have a way to integrate with that, even if it's not a piece of our own platform. We really have the configurability to work with existing systems that a business owner may
Sure.
have. And they might have preference over. So we don't ever want anyone to feel like they have to use everything that we have, although we do have that option. We're very flexible in being able to kind of fit into an existing business owner's ecosystem if they love a particular piece of technology, just from like a use or an application standpoint.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I imagine that when I think about the all the different types of businesses, there's just so many of them. Um, I can't think of one that couldn't benefit from the services that you provide. I mean, you
I
really.
mean, I would agree, and I would say again, it's the one thing I love about what I do is I know that I have the opportunity to help everybody. Whether we're the right solution or not is not really up to my determination. I definitely will make a really good case for it. That's for sure. But again, like I want to empower the business owner to make a decision that they feel comfortable with, that they know is going to be in the best alignment, and I really want to empower them to make that decision. A lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, but sometimes I talk to some business owners, and they might find that what they're currently doing is good for now. Like I was talking to like an 80 employee marketing company, and they liked what we had to do, what we could do, but they liked the efficiencies that we could provide. But right now, it just wasn't the right time for them as they were
Sure.
kind of going through some different projects. But again, like they're interested in reevaluating maybe for 2025, and that's great as well. But they just chose to kind of stick with the status quo, and I am okay with that result, because I know that the business owner was well equipped to make a decision that was based on fact and based on the right information that kind of led them to that result.
Sure, that makes sense. Now, is there a time of year that's best to make a transition? You think about businesses transitioning their healthcare benefits at the end of the year because of
Mhm.
the fiscal year end. Um, but what do you find in your business?
Well, now with technology and with the like data extraction and just our amazing implementation team, iSolved is equipped to help a business owner, whether it be beginning of the year, middle of the quarter, end of a quarter, beginning of a quarter, around holiday, whatever that may be. And we're never going to commit to something that is not going to be 100 that we're going to be 110% confident in being able to deliver. But I would say that like that question really is so dependent on what's going on in that business owner's world.
Sure.
It may be, the beginning of, January 1 is where the vast majority of businesses will make a transition, but they don't start the conversation January 1st. They usually start the conversation now or, going up until the end of the year to start planning and coordinating
Sure.
for a transition like that. I would say that like on paper, beginning of the quarter, end of the quarter, end of the year, beginning of the year, those are,
Most
easy
logical.
times from a like data extraction standpoint, but because of whenever there's a client that we're working with or business owner, there is like little to nothing that they need to do in terms of the actual extraction process or the conversion process. It's all handled by our implementation team. Really, a business owner that's transitioning January 1 is going to get basically the exact same experience as if they were transitioning in the middle of quarter 2, just because of technology. But that's a really good question.
So if they do it mid-year, let's say July 1st, somebody transitions, at the end of the year, do their employees get 2 W-2 statements, one
They'll
from
get
the
one.
previous?
No, actually, they're going to get one W-2 because the W-2 is still just going to be based on the tax ID that the business owner is providing to their employees. So in the event, let's say someone was a transition in the middle of the year, iSolved, our internal implementation team, will do an audit going back to the beginning of the year to ensure that everything was done correctly up to that point. And when we officially make that transition on paper from a tax perspective, it'll be as if that business was with iSolved since January 1st of 2024. So all the year
Gotcha.
end, all the quarterlies, everything like that. Obviously, if it's been filed up to that point, we're going to use the filings that the existing provider or that business
Sure.
already did. But moving forward and kind of dating back to the beginning of the year, it'll be as if that business was with iSolved from January.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious that from an employer standpoint, managing multiple W-2s for each employee just seems like it. So I'm glad to hear that wouldn't be the case. You guys kind of handle all that.
Correct. Yeah.
And I can imagine your implementation team probably charts out the transition process pretty thoroughly so that a business owner knows exactly what's going to happen, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, leading up to the go live date, whenever that is, right? Because you have to gather a lot of information in order to build the profile, right?
Yeah, it's everything from doing a welcome call to kind of make sure that everything we've collected up to that point is accurate and correct, to then our
Mm-hmm.
project manager team really trying to understand exactly what the workflows that business owner or that admin is trying to, or that business leader is trying to achieve, building out that system, collecting all the data. Our implementation team is very thorough and very good at communicating and hitting timelines and deadlines and making sure that the client doesn't feel overwhelmed, but that they feel very much in the loop with what is going on, what is happening, what stage are we in, and what stage are we moving into, and when that's going to be happening. And that way, everyone is on the same page, and we're able to keep those lines of communication streamlined, but still open.
Right. Yeah. When it comes to a transition like this, surprises are not a good thing.
No, definitely not. And I would say the vast majority of the work of transitioning is through the conversation that I have with the business owner on the front end by doing an effective discovery, taking them and trying to
Sure.
understand what they're trying to accomplish, and then taking them through the demo and working alongside and partnering with that business owner to finalize a solution that's going to fit their needs, and of course discussing pricing and making sure we can fit into their budget. That's probably 90% of the work that a business owner would need. And once they make the decision, our implementation team really does pretty much everything from there with the business owners and input.
That's great. So let me touch on one. We're going to wrap the show up here in a minute or two, but so a business that has maybe union employees, not an issue for iSolved, right?
No, not an issue. I mean, there's definitely a lot of different reporting, that's required for that, but that's certainly something that we can, dive into the specifics on and make sure that our, reporting is going to reflect, whatever deductions are necessary for those particular unions. But yeah, we can
Yeah.
definitely, we do have a lot of clients that have employees that are a part of the union.
Okay. How about independent contractors, 1099
We do
employees?
those very, yeah, we do those very well too. Actually, I've got a couple clients that have an entire team of just independent contractors. They've got about 15 or 20 of them. They don't have any W-2 employees. All of them are 1099s. And what they love about our system is the onboarding piece of being able to onboard a new contractor paperlessly and then have it automatically load into the platform. And then also at the end of the year, when you're a business that has a ton of contractors, the 1099 distribution, getting all those 1099s of those contractors, whether they still work for you or not, is always a tough task. So giving each of those 1099 contractors or employees, W-2 employees, online access to be able to view their paycheck stubs, gather their year-end documents for tax time, such as a 1099 or W-2, electronically through the mobile app with their own, security-proofed login.
Sure.
It is really something that adds a lot of, takes a lot of stress off of a business owner that has contractors towards the end of the year, especially when it comes around tax time.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that's awesome. Matt, you've done a tremendous job of answering the questions that I had. And I really, thinking about this conversation from the perspective of a business owner was what I really wanted to focus on today, because I wanted to make sure that our listeners, if they are business owners, they can't maybe, I want to be able to ask their questions on their behalf. And you've done a great job on addressing that. If we have any business owners that are listening that you need a little bit more information, or you want to get in contact with Matt to investigate what iSolved can do and how iSolved might be able to help, I certainly encourage you to reach out to Matt. And I want you to share your contact information with our listeners again.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'll say just shortly before that, there's, two things that I really try to accomplish with every single business owner when I sit, or even a networking partner, or whatever it may be. The first thing is I want to provide value, insight, or perspective and have someone walk away with new information from, taking the time to interact with me, because I know that everyone's time is valuable. So I'm really hoping I delivered on that today and I was able to give some good perspective to help equip some of your listeners with more information to help them make an effective decision on what makes sense for them as far as next steps within their business. And then the second thing is, if there's something that I can help you out with, obviously I would love the opportunity to earn that right. But if there is something, like, one of my passions is introducing people that I meet to someone that can help them in a way that I'm not able to, which is really where the go-giver, kind of like mentality comes in.
Absolutely.
So, I'm either A, trying to provide value to someone when I meet with them, or B, trying to get them introduced to someone that can provide value to them. A 10 out of 10, like a home run for me, is when I can do both at the same time, but I'm at least looking to achieve one of those two things in every single interaction. So I'm hoping that I did that for you and your listeners today. But my contact information, again, Matt Hammer with iSolved. You can reach me at best is phone via text or phone call, which is 630-414-6820. Again, that's 630-414-6820. Please add me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there, and I love to engage with all my connections on LinkedIn. And I share a lot of some funny memes and some great insight on there as well. And then the last way you can get a hold of me is via email, which is mhammer@isolvedhcm.com.
Great. Again, I'll have that information in our show notes and on the screen. But yeah, I totally agree with your expectations here. I think you delivered it and then some on your plan. I believe the business owners that we have had listening here, I'm sure they walked away with some additional information. There's a lot of, and I know a lot of bookkeepers and accountants will do payroll for companies, and they'll get those tasks done. But you are so much more than that. Again, the payroll might be the center of the wheel, but the other components, the other tools, is really what differentiates you from doing payroll in QuickBooks or using your bookkeeper versus having a full suite of solutions there to make sure that your business is compliant, and you're retaining the right employees and you're attracting the right employees, etc. So you were successful in that, Matt. I can tell you that for a fact. So thank you for being a guest today. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up the show?
No, Mike, I appreciate that. Beautifully said on your end. And again, thank you for, the platform that you've created. This is really cool. And I'm very, I had such a great time with you today. And, I appreciate the opportunity. And the other thing too, kind of going back to two shout outs of some individuals that your podcast has helped me out with. One, Raghu Sundar from Always Be Connecting. He was a mentor of mine. It was great to see him on one of your earlier episodes. And then, when I mentioned I was doing a lot of, kind of interesting facts and insights and memes on LinkedIn. I got all of that strategy from Alan Stern's Heat Method, and I actually got a lot of that value and that content from that particular podcast with Alan. And I had the opportunity to reach out to Alan, and we've got a coffee, date set up here in the near future. I'm looking forward to pick his brain a little bit more. But I was exposed to that content from your podcast, and for that, I just have to say thank you because I've already taken some value away from some of the content that you've shared. So really appreciate this, and I'm hoping that I can pay it forward as well.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, those two guys, Raghu and Alan, are both awesome guys with great information. And Raghu's the one that turned me on to the Go Giver book. So it's an interesting, when you map it all out, it's an interesting web that we weave through our referral connections, and you surround yourself with the right people and good, solid individuals, and your business will grow exponentially. And so I'm happy to have you as one of the pieces of that solution there, Matt. So thank you for that.
Likewise, Mike. Thank you very much for that. And it is it's pretty amazing to see how well connected everything is and how full circle everything kind of always comes back around. So again, really appreciate the opportunity, and again, thank you to your listeners for spending time with us here as well.
Great. So as we wrap up here, let me just throw in one last little plug for Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions, my day job. I Got a Guy podcast is a passion of mine, but I pay the bills by serving clients with GPS tracking technology. We work with business owners that own commercial vehicles, and we help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through using GPS tracking technology. Lately, we've been finding a lot of business owners have shifted to a mode of wanting to know where things are, where their employees are, where their vehicles are, where their assets are, and and using our technology to help them enhance their business. They want to be as efficient as possible because it all contributes to the bottom line. So if you happen to be a business owner that owns commercial vehicles or trailers with assets, I'm thinking of landscape companies, for example, if you have bobcats or skid steers or Kubotas and mowers, etc., and you want to know where these things are throughout the day and throughout the week, we can help with that. So I encourage you to reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. You can find us at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com, or call us at 847-865-6008, 847-865-6008. Have a conversation and see if we might be a fit for you now or maybe down the road. You never know how it might fit into your solution, but we'd love to have the conversation and plant that seed and start the dialogue and see where it takes us. No pressure, no obligation, just conversation is free. So thank you for allowing me to throw that in. But Matt, again, thanks for being with us. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in again. I encourage you to share this through all your social media links and get the word out. And then reach out to Matt Hammer at iSolved and tell him you heard about him here on I Got a Guy podcast. So again, thanks for your attention, and we look forward to talking with you all next week. Take care. Make it a great week. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.